Should you buy a lightsaber new or should you buy one used? Now, there are some pros and cons to each method, and let's kind of walk through some of that. So first of all, I'll introduce the sabers in the video. This is an Ultrasabers Apprentice LEV4, and I got this directly from Ultrasabers. And this is a Saberforge Exile that I got on eBay. So I purchased this through I purchased it used through an individual. And there are two sabers from some of the biggest custom saber companies out there. And my experience getting the sabers, well, varied quite a bit. So first of all, one of the benefits of getting a new saber is that you're dealing with the company directly. So they'll be able to answer any questions you have about the products. They should be able to let you know. After all, it's their product and their company. And if you have an issue with the saber down the line, then again, you should be able to reach out to their customer service and hopefully they'll help you straighten that out. Although the customer service provided by the different saber companies is a little variable. Some companies are known for better service than others, and I think some companies will be more receptive to any problems you might have in the future with the saber. So you have to kind of do some research in advance to see if you can get a sense of which type of company you're dealing with there. And you do also want to think about what's covered under warranty. That can be a benefit of a new saber. Your saber will likely have some type of warranty from the company. But again, you need to see what's actually covered there, and would you have to pay the shipping to send the saber back in the event of having an issue like that? Those are things you probably want to know if you're counting on the warranty helping you out. And if you got something, say, off eBay, or if you just purchase it from anybody else, that will often void the warranty on the product. So you wouldn't be able to deal with, say, Ultrasabers if you purchase the saber used. Of course, you can always ask them questions, and I'm sure they would answer your questions, but, they're not going to cover any issue you may have with the saber. Okay. So that's definitely a big plus too. You get a little more support if there's an issue if you purchase the saber new. Another thing is availability. So your best availability will often be directly through the company. Although you do have periods where certain models will sell out. And in those cases, you might be able to find whatever's sold out on eBay or through forums or somewhere else. It's possible, but you never really know what's going to be there. And that's how getting a saber on eBay or from the forums or whatever, it's so different because whatever someone's selling, it's going to range a lot from day to day. And you'll need to kind of keep looking, and you don't know what you're going to see. Whereas if you go directly through the company, they'll have kind of the same models available. Sometimes they'll go out of stock possibly, but you sort of know what to expect with the sabers. And that's kind of another downside, I guess, of getting a saber used, is you won't really be able to customize your saber as much typically, unless, well, no. If you're buying it used, you just get what you get. So like I got this one used on eBay, and the person I bought it from chose this brass CoverTech wheel. If I had bought this new from Saberforge, I would have chosen the color myself. And they chose the color of the blade. So this is kind of a light blue blade, I think. And depending on the saber, there are a variety of ways that the initial buyer may have tailored the saber to their own taste. And it may or may not match up with yours. So that's kind of a compromise you make when you buy a used saber. And okay, another thing you definitely have to think about is the description. So if you get a new saber, well, you'll get the company description of the item, and you'll be able to ask the company directly any questions you may have about the saber. If you get the saber used, sometimes people give very brief descriptions of the saber, so you don't necessarily know all the specs. You might be able to ask the seller, and they may or may not be able to answer your questions on that, but you don't know. And you could also end up getting an older model of the saber. For example, now this Saberforge Exile has the Viridian soundboard, and Saberforge has a newer soundboard after that. Although, I knew this at the time when I got the Saber, but you have to look for little things like that a lot more closely if you're purchasing a Saber used. See which soundboard they're using, etc. Okay. Now, another thing is the site itself. So if you purchase a Saber new, oftentimes you'll go directly through the website. So you'd go through Ultrasabers.com, Saberforge.com, Kyberlight.com, etc., right? Now, there are a few vendors that will route their sales through Etsy, or occasionally you can find new sabers on eBay as well through an actual company, but those are more kind of like smaller sellers that'll do that on eBay. But if you're going through the company directly that way, sometimes, if you go through the site, you may have to sign up for a new login and all of that. And you'll definitely want to look at the security credentials, because there are some Saber companies out there that are not secure websites. So that means the information you put in could be discovered by somebody else. So that's something you really need to look out for. Now, if you go through eBay instead, or some other, major sites like that, then, that's a larger, more popular platform, and it has certain security in place. Like, for example, eBay is definitely a secure site. You always have hackers and things like that, but, secure site versus not secure site, that's pretty fundamental. Yeah, and you'll just want to see what the individual Saber companies' policies are regarding your data as well, or, something to consider. What else? Okay, so eBay or used, that can be a great way to go if you want a retired hilt. So sometimes the Saber companies will retire certain hilts. So really your only option there is to get the Saber on eBay or through forums or whatever. Now, I do have to say, this kind of dovetails into the next point, that the availability of sabers, custom sabers in particular, on eBay is very low. So surprisingly, there are not that many Ultrasabers, Saberforge, Vader's Vault, etc. There's really very few of those that are on eBay at any given time. Sometimes it's just a few. There's been more Ultrasabers recently, but I know I've checked and there'd be like, say, 2 or 3 different Vader's Vault hilts on eBay. And that's, that's worldwide. That's just all that's on there, sometimes at any given moment. So that comes back to my point about just having to settle for whatever's there. But one benefit of settling for whatever's there, though, is that eliminates your choices. So especially if you're brand new to sabers, sometimes the choices can be overwhelming. So one benefit of buying a used saber is all the choices have been made for you, and it minimizes that kind of anxiety of choosing. Of course, the flip side of that is you don't get to choose, to configure the saber exactly the way you'd want it, but it depends on how you look at it. It could actually be a positive. It could kind of make it easier to purchase your first saber. And the other difference between new and used sabers is the price often. So, and it can actually go both ways, you guys. Sometimes you can find sabers cheaper on eBay, and sometimes they'll be more expensive. So you really have to do your research there and see which of those situations you're in. But you can find a good deal, and especially if you look at auctions, I've said this before in other videos, I recommend checking out the auctions. You can get a really nice deal on a used saber sometimes via auction, because it won't get bid up as high as you might expect. But, that depends. Let's see. I think one final thought is the condition. So, you are rolling the dice a little bit with the condition if you're getting it used, and hopefully your seller, whoever's selling it to you, is honest and thorough in their description. But when in doubt, always ask as many questions as you need to make your purchasing decision. And you want to do that in advance to try to get an accurate picture. And you also want to check the seller's reputation and make sure that they have some solid feedback. Those are some of my main tips about purchasing a saber new or used. It can be good to purchase it used sometimes or new sometimes. There are definitely benefits and drawbacks to both.